Hello, and welcome to another episode of The End of the Search. This one I call it Seek Not Perfection, Instead Recognize Liberation. What do I mean by that? There's a tendency of thinking that if I achieve a particular spiritual goal, call it enlightenment, call it whatever you want, I will be perfect. I will not have negative thoughts. I only have positive or good thoughts. The body will be healthy always. I won't have any problems. Life is going to be wonderful in a sense that things will go in a particular way. What is interesting is that this idea, and let's just make it to what most people usually seek in spirituality, which is a mind that is tranquil, that doesn't think, or whatever the case may be, which is usually where it leads to when people get into a spiritual search, generally speaking. The problem with that is that this is an idea that the mind has constructed and now is pursuing that idea through whatever means or whatever the case may be, and it keeps running in circles because that is a fantasy that can never be reached. Because we don't control the thoughts, they simply appear. Now, I'm not going to argue whether you can control the thoughts or not, because to me that's not the point. I'm just inviting you to something that is practical, accessible right now for you to investigate. The liberation that I'm speaking of is not the absence of thoughts, is when you stop believing the thoughts. In other words, the sky is not free only when there's no clouds. The sky is free always because it is sky. And even when clouds appear in it, the sky is still free because it's not identified with clouds. Well, you are free right now. Your freedom right now, like one of the books in the series, only when you can see the thoughts and realize that these are just thoughts and don't identify with them. When feelings and sensation appears, but you don't identify with the thought that is trying to translate that feeling or sensation, then life simply is. Thoughts appear, sensations appear, circumstances appear, but if the mind does not identify with the thoughts that are trying to translate all of that, you're free. And any thought that may appear, if you don't label it positive or negative, then you never have negative thoughts, and consequently you also never have positive thoughts. You only see thoughts as passing clouds that has nothing to do with what you are. And what you are is the freedom in which you are resting always. Because right now you are free. You may be or feel imprisoned, but it's not by anything other than an interpretation. Right now, if you don't identify with any thought, it doesn't matter what's going on in your life right now. I'm not saying, I'm not discrediting or anything like that. No, I'm very respectful at whatever you're going through, but I'm simply offering an invitation so you can put it into practice right now. Whatever may be going through in your life, whatever the circumstances, if you do not identify with a thought that is trying to somehow translate or judge that experience, is trying to give meaning to it, if you don't identify with any thoughts, what is left? You see? What is left is freedom. You see? So this is the invitation which you have access to always because it's your nature. Your nature is freedom. Bondage, it only comes from believing the thoughts. That's what I mean. You can be in a prison cell and be totally free. Or you could become, technically speaking, outside world, which we call it free. You could be, that kind of freedom. Having all the toys you can possibly imagine, having all the money that you ever wanted, having everything you always wanted, and yet imprisoned by your thinking. And that's what leads to depression and sometimes suicidal tendencies. How come this person who seemed to have it all of a sudden took his life away? Because he wasn't free. You see? It believes so much the content of its mind. And now what we're doing here is that, first of all, beginning to question the original thought, which is what I refer to as the original sin or the fall, which is the thought, I am this separate entity. This is not who I am. I simply am. You see? You are always. You can never not be. That's the amness where this is pointing to, which is the obviousness of life. And then to that amness, we superimpose a title or a label, which is me. But not me as consciousness or totality, me as this. And because the me thought hasn't been questioned, and is taken as this is who I am, then every single label is going to be used to not only corroborate the false sense of identity, but to define it. So if I have thoughts that I like, I define myself as I'm really wonderful, I feel great. If there are thoughts I don't like, then I find myself depressed or feeling bad. But if I don't believe any of the thoughts, what is left? Boredom is not going to be, because boredom is a thought. If I feel bored, it's because there's a thought that says this moment is not as it should be. There's a feeling, a sensation, and there's a judgment about it. And now the mind says we need to have some activity. But when you are resting in the presence that you are, that is not boredom. That is peace. Eternal. Never changing. Always present. And then a thought comes in, and that is overshadowed by the thought. It's not being exterminated. Because the background, you know, what you are can never be, it cannot disappear. It could be covered up by the clouds of thought. The sky never disappears. Even when you look up and you see a cloudy space, you say, where's the sky? It's still there. You cannot see it because the clouds are covering it. Well, where are you? Right here. Always. Not the you that think is watching this video. Where are you? The essence, the peace, the presence. Where is it? It's right here. But it's overshadowed by thinking. Or should I say by the content of the mind, the thought. And then the mind begins an investigation, but that investigation is still the mind engaged. You see? So at the beginning, use the content, we use the logic to point to what eventually logic cannot go to, because the experience we're pointing to is this. This is it. See, this is direct experience. This is not conceptual. This is direct experience of beingness. You see? This is freedom. Don't identify with any thought and you're free. Believe every thought and you seem to be in prison. But you can never be in prison. The sky can never be imprisoned by clouds. Totality cannot be imprisoned by a thought or by the image or this seeming appearance. And what we're pointing is what you are. The fear of just going there, which is not going anywhere, you already are. The fear is that at a much deeper level or subtle level, I don't want to let go of my sense of identity. This is who I think I am. I really work hard to believe this is what I am. So then what the mind tries to do is begins to come up with the concept of enlightenment or awakening, but mostly for the individual. I want to be an enlightened individual. You see? And that's the perfection that the mind tries to sell, that if I become enlightened as an individual, I will have a life where I can have the things I want, or the thoughts will not appear, or I'll, whatever idea the mind comes up with, until it comes to the realization that if I don't believe any thoughts, does it matter if life goes in one way or another one? Makes no difference. The screen doesn't care whether the movie is horror or whether it's comedy, whether it's drama, nostalgia, or it's action. The screen can care less, unless the screen believes that it's the movie, and then is reacting to the movie. In reality, it's reacting to the screen, thinking whatever thoughts about the movie. You see? Well, you are the screen. But don't try to get this with your mind. It makes no sense. I'm just pointing to the obvious right now. Let's put it to the test. Come on, we do this all the time. Right now, if you don't identify with any thoughts, just let them be there. That's fine. Just don't identify with them. These are just thoughts. What is left? And what is left is not a conceptual understanding. What is left is the direct experience of just existing. This is what is left. What we're doing now, or learning to do, or unlearning, I don't know which word you're going to use, is to remain as such. You always are that such, so technically speaking, you don't try to remain as, you will always be. It's just that we see how the mind distracts itself with its thoughts, with its evaluation, with its belief system, which is just thoughts. See, it's all thoughts. You see? When you feel comfortable enough to just be, then you're free. And that's why we're not trying to become perfect. Instead, we're recognizing the freedom in which we rest. And this is it. This is all these videos are about, pointing to the very same thing. Don't identify with the content of the mind, just watch them as they go, and that's fine. Paradoxically, knowing that you're not going to do that because I say so, you do it if in your script you're supposed to do it. As simple as that. But I'm not going to get into that argument. I just make it very simple. Act as if you supposedly don't identify with the thoughts, even though you know at a much deeper level that is not something, that's not a choice that you make. It's just simply what is made through you. It's being able to learn to live with the paradox. I am comfortable with that. When I wake up in the morning, I know that I didn't wake up in the morning. Life woke up this instrument in the morning, and I trust that whatever decisions are made are not my decisions, are just simply decisions that are made through this instrument according to a plan that life may have, whatever you want to call it. So I don't have any issues with that. Am I the one making this video? Who cares? The question is it serving you? Did you choose to watch this video? Who cares? The question is, life led you to this video. See where the information is pointing to. Does it serve you? If it doesn't serve you, discard it. That's fine. I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. There's no one anyway, but it appears so anyway. Within that appearance, I find myself playing this role. And I play all kinds of roles. Like you play all kinds of roles. If you don't believe the content of the mind that even tells you that the role is who you are, then you're free. I know that I am not any of the roles that I seem to play throughout the day. I simply am. And so are you. I am. And that's all there is. Well, this is inspiration that came through this instrument. I hope it served, and as always, may peace permeate the mind so that love can be extended.